Hello everybody, hope you're doing alright, I hope you're keeping safe and I hope you're keeping sane. I want to talk today about excuses we make for gambling, and it's very important to understand that this isn't coming from a position of a high horse. These are all things that I have said, all things that I've told other people, and most importantly things that I've told myself whilst I've been in the midst of a gambling addiction, and almost certainly when I've actually been gambling, particularly, dare I say, when I've been losing. Now, before I get into the crux of this video, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Obviously, I've been away for quite a while. Nothing severe, just been really busy with work and all these other things. Obviously, with a bit of a technological issue in the interim as well. But thank you to everyone who's continued to support the channel, new subscribers, people leaving really nice comments saying how much I'm helping and sharing their experiences as well. So thank you so much for all of that. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I've not been myself recently, had a few sort of mental issues. And sometimes reading your comments and just experiencing that positivity has really helped me. But I'm not going to get too bogged down in that today, because I want to talk about excuses, and the excuses I used to make and the excuses that so many gamblers make, which allow us to perpetuate this very harmful addiction. I was going to do it as a top 5, but I'll just sort of cross them off as they come off the list. Now, the first one, which is something we've all almost certainly said at some point in our lives, and that is, it's only money. It's only money, and often this comes with extra little bonus tracks such as you can't take it with you. Things like that, things that we tell ourselves, as a means to excuse our gambling and almost certainly excuse our losses. Now, of course, there is logic in the fact that it is indeed only money, and if we don't spend it on this, it's invariably going to get spent on something else somewhere down the line. But we are not choosing to spend the money in the way in which, if we were sober, and I don't mean sober necessarily in terms of alcohol, but in terms of sober mind. Basically, if we're not in the haze of a gambling session, it's not necessarily what we would choose to spend the money on, and it's almost certainly not what we would choose to spend such a significant proportion, as it always was with me, of our spare capital, sometimes not even spare capital, but spare money, disposable income, on. So to say it's only money is, whilst technically true, is casually and deliberately disregarding all the other things that money could be spent on, all of those other things which you would much rather, both in foresight and in hindsight, have actually used that money for, be that for things for yourself, or to support, help, or treat your family, friends, loved ones, and all the rest of it. I could afford it. Now, this very much ties into my previous point. I used to say to myself, well, actually, I've got cash in my wallet. It's money I've earned. I can afford to lose this money. Losing this money is not going to cause me any great harm. I've paid my rent. I've paid my bills. My council tax is up to date. There's petrol in my car. There's food in my cupboard. So what? I can afford to lose this money. But I refer back to point A. Yes, maybe you can. Maybe losing the money that you've just lost is not going to cause you any significant financial harm. Maybe it's not going to cause you any kind of real difficulties in terms of paying things that need to be paid. However, the more you spend, the more you lose, the closer you get to not being able to afford it. Losing money often leads to chasing losses. In fact, with many gambling addicts, it almost invariably results in chasing losses. So suddenly the loss of the money you could afford, which is your excuse to partake in gambling, suddenly becomes money that you can't afford, and all the time you're digging yourself deeper and deeper into this addiction. And this is, again, casually and deliberately disregarding the fact that yes, maybe you can afford it. Even in the instances where you can afford it, it doesn't lead to anything worse. You are still spending money that could be used for far more pleasurable, far more constructive or things, or to help out other people. I enjoy it. Now, this is something that I used to sort of convince myself. I've spoken at length about this before, and how we sometimes tie gambling into enjoyable or otherwise positive experiences, and this is taking out of all consideration whether you win, lose or draw. I had many good times while I was gambling with friends and what have you, but with hindsight, with retrospect, firstly, most of the times I was gambling wasn't a good time, wasn't a happy time. And those times where I remember experiencing pleasure, remember those great nights out, those times at the casino, times in the arcade, going around the pubs playing the fruit machines, those times that I remember where I have this attribution between gambling and these happy, positive memories with friends and what have you, they are totally disregarding the fact that the gambling wasn't the central point of the pleasure. Now, just to sort of outline this, me and a friend of mine used to go away very regularly. By regularly, I mean once or twice a year. We used to go away on these adult music weekends at places like Butlins. And we used to drink, and we used to gamble, and we used to have a laugh, and we used to watch all the cheesy music. And I have great fond memories of these lads' weekends, But I went on one recently, and it turns out the gambling was just merely there. It wasn't the basis of the pleasurable memory, the happy memory. That was all based on the fact that I was away with a friend, we were having a good time, and I was enjoying myself. Okay, the gambling memories we have that we believe to be happy memories are so often completely disassociated with the act of gambling in itself. One thing I'd also say about this I enjoy gambling thing, one of the memories that has come back time and time again when I've been making these videos and when I've sort of been looking back over my gambling, dare I say it, career, is so many situations that would follow a similar sort of form to this. I'd go to the pub with some friends, and inevitably the fruit machine or the digital machine in the corner would be calling me, and eventually I would no longer be able to resist the urge, and I would go and start playing the machine. Now, while I was sitting there getting increasingly frustrated and getting mixed up in the haze of my gambling session, I would hear out the corner of my ear. Can you hear something out the corner of your ear? You know what I mean. In the background, I could hear my friends laughing, joking, often talking about subjects that I'd love to be involved in. They'll start talking about football or about darts or something that I really enjoy, and I want to get involved in that conversation. I want to be part of that, but instead I'm the one in the corner not enjoying myself. Why do I know I'm not enjoying myself? Because I'd rather be somewhere where I'm not paying hundreds of pounds an hour for pleasure. I'd rather just be sat there enjoying the free conversation with the cost of a couple of pints of Stella. Also, there will, and this is not necessarily one of these excuses that I've written down, but there will be that time where they start to talk about you, and you will feel your blood pressure boiling. You will feel the anger inside you swell up, not only because your friends are now talking about you, often in a disparaging way, because you are that person. Every group of friends generally has one of these people who spend their night out on the fruit machines or gambling or on their phone. Not only because it's horrible to hear your friends talk about you in a negative way, but also because you know this about yourself. This is something you've beaten yourself up over. So not only are you not enjoying yourself, you're not enjoying your night out, you're not getting to spend time with your friends, you're now being criticised for something that you criticise yourself for. And the stress gets too much, and quite often that can be the end of your night. Two last excuses we give ourselves. This one's a bit of a coverall, and I would say it's anything, absolutely anything to do with a gambler's fallacy. Now, we all know gambler's fallacies, don't we? Roulette wheel, if it's come in red 5 times, it's guaranteed to come in black very soon. Where we know that actually it's give or take, a 50-50 split. I often hear this, I still hear this now. If I go to my local pub, we've got 2 of those new digital cabinet things, all of which I think the games are pretty much all random now. And you still get people who say, well, I've got to play. This is the excuse. I've got to play. I've got to put some more money in because I've put so much in already. Or they would have seen someone else play and lose a load of money, and they go, well, I've got to have a go because it's due to pay out. Now, maybe in the olden days when everything was RTP controlled and percentage controlled, there would be some logic, some rationale in this. But I hear it all the time now with random games. People still have these gamblers' fallacies in their head that somehow something's due, something owes them something. Well, I played this 2 weeks ago and I never got a feature, so it owes me a feature. And this is their excuse. They know it doesn't owe them the feature. I used to do it. I knew it didn't owe me a feature. I knew there was no more chance of me getting a big win or a jackpot now than there was at any other time while I've been playing this game. But I use that gambler's fallacy, I use that flawed and proven to be incorrect logic in order to justify my scratching of that gambling itch, my placating and ultimately exacerbating my addiction. And finally, the last thing, and this isn't necessarily an excuse, it's a resignation. And I've spoken about the word degenerate in previous videos. But there will become a point with a lot of gamblers, myself included, where if you're questioned about your gambling and about your gambling losses, and this is the point in my video where I get emotional, hasn't happened yet, but it's bound to happen now, you kind of go, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I'm a degenerate, I'm a loser, I'm an addict. And you get to that point where you are almost classifying yourself as a loser, as someone who is, beyond hope, as someone who's on a path to destruction, and you are outwardly describing yourself in the most negative possible way. Because at least this way you get to continue gambling. You get to play up to that image of being a degenerate gambling addict, being a loser. And this is why I get quite frustrated when I see the word degenerate being bandied about by gambling channels and by all and sundry, like it's some sort of badge of honour. It's not. It's when you are at a very, very low ebb. If you are a gambler, if you are an addict, that is a problem. You have a problem. But that doesn't mean that you're a loser. It doesn't mean that you're beyond hope, and it certainly shouldn't put you on a path to destruction. A gambling addiction is a difficult problem to solve, but in theory it's a very, very simple problem, and that could be your only problem. You fix that, and suddenly this cloud lifts. You are no longer that loser. You're no longer that degenerate, and suddenly you'll find you have so much positive going for you. So this resignation is possibly the most dangerous of all, this idea that you kind of just throw your hands up and go, look, this is who I am. I'm always going to be a gambler. I'm always going to be a degenerate. I'm always going to be a loser. And that is then your excuse that you use in order to perpetuate your addiction. So, once again, as I said at the very, very start of this video, this is not a judgment on anyone. This is not me speaking from an elevated position. This is not me getting on my high horse. These are all things I said to myself. And yes, I mean more likely than not to myself. Yes, you sometimes use these excuses to other people, but more often than not, they're done in your head while you're gambling, while you're losing, while you're berating yourself. You're making up these excuses to help you to perpetuate your addiction. Once you accept that these excuses are just that, excuses and not reasons, then you can actually start to take some more progressive steps, some more active steps into getting into some form of recovery and rebuilding your life, making yourself not think of yourself as a loser, as a person beyond hope, as a degenerate. Thank you very much, as I said before, for all your support, all your lovely comments, like all the positive feedback, people saying that I've helped and all the rest of it. It really does mean a hell of a lot to me. A couple of people, I haven't been through all my comments, I'm sure a couple of people have left me the super thanks thing under the video, which is sort of gives me a tip, allows me to go out and buy myself a pint, and that is very, very much appreciated, just because it's nice to know and that people think that what I'm doing is worthwhile. But if you are new around here, I've made hundreds of videos all about gambling addiction and a few other things thrown in for good measure. So hit the subscribe button, check out my other videos, and I will, of course, see you in the next video. Stay safe and sane, everyone, and speak to you soon. Bye for now.